누군가를 이끈다는 건 고통스러운 일이야. 손발도 안 맞는 자들과 함께 일하는 건 그럴 수 있다고 생각하지만 원치도 않을 때 모두의 앞에 떠밀려지는 건 불쾌해서 말이지.
Here, have some coffee. Greetings and salutations, everyone. I'm Ekmac. This is Limbus Company. We have access to the new IDs. Let's buy them.
일어났나요, 파시아? 파우스트는 새로운 친구를 소개하고 싶어서 파시아를 기다리고 있었답니다. 어떤가요? 멋진 살점을 가지신 분이죠.
함께 파헤쳐볼까요? 당신에게 남은 생명의 맥덩을.
Mildly messed up. Can I quickly look
그
at
아이는
something?
말이야. 선택하는 삶보다는 선택받는 삶.
Ooh.
이 삶의 유쾌함을 느낄 수 있었으면 좋겠소만.
Every one of these Nursefathers is going to have a scene of that red thread, I bet. That's gonna be pretty cool, huh? Anyhow, checking out our sinners, I actually have plans to do a full difficulty run. A max adversity solo run. With Ishmael again, because it's always Ishmael. Why wouldn't it be Ishmael? But while we're here, we might as well have a look at what Fascia, the Ring of Spiders Forced, can bring us. It looks like she actually starts out with her ability to swap between sets. That's kind of handy. So let's tackle this one by one. Iron Maiden's skill, 2 plus 4, so it rolls a maximum of 10. Butcher Ribs, 2 plus 4. No coin power bonuses of any kind. Fascia Hungers, at 10 plus Corpus ingredient, consume 5 to gain the following: Clash power and an unbreakable final coin. Consume 5, gain 4. Gotcha. Time for your meal, Fascia. At 10 plus Corpus ingredient, consume 5 ingredients to gain the following effects: Clash power and an unbreakable final coin, which is plus 4. This just gives bind, this gives her haste along with bind. Upon entering the ingredient, gain number of ring allies times 2 in a Corpus ingredient to a maximum of 10. She looks so cute like this, and certainly not murderous in the slightest. Actually, we don't get to see Forced looking cute that often, do we? I think it was last... she was pretty good at it last April Fool's, not the child one. Oh no, the child one does count, but I was thinking even further back when they did the body swap. But anyway, skill end. If dealing HP or shield damage, gain ingredients. If target is killed, gain ingredients. So in fact, once she makes it to unbreakables on this skill, she's going to gain more than she loses each turn when using a skill too. But back to business. If the above effect raises potency to 2 or higher, gain artwork Fascia. Base attack skills and clashable counters count as skills that gain charge count. Because of that. Upon entering for the first time, gain Iron Maiden. 4 aggro, 1 protection, 5 defense level, shield HP equal to 5% of HP. When hit by the last coin of an attacker, deal extra pierce damage in retaliation and 2 bleed count. Once per skill, 3 times per turn, max damage per turn is 60. She gains Unbound Flow State when entering her super mode. When staggered, recover from stagger. Alright, and this is her Iron Maiden nonsense. So if you really want her to stick in Iron Maiden mode, I guess you just spam her defensive skill. Iron Maiden exclusive skill. On Clash Win, inflict a bleed count. Deal bleed damage, pierce damage equal to bleed potency on the attacker. Unbreakable coin. Exhibition begins is her evade. Gain self-unbound flow. Gain assist defense once per turn. And gain an evade. On evade, inflict a bind once per turn. I would personally have made it once per attacker. At the very least. Anyway, this is her assist defense. If the target is bleed, gain coin power. At 10 plus corpus ingredient count, consume 5 corpus ingredient to gain clash power and convert the final coin to an unbreakable. But that's not the one that has the bleed on it. Okay, Uptie 1. Raise our speed from 3 to 4 to 3 to 5. At the moment she's 3 to 4. This gives her a max speed boost, so while she's in Iron Maiden, it does lock her to the 3 to 5 speed boom range, but she picks up 2 when she's in this state, so she won't be able to muscle her way into the... She can't get into the Gluttony team. That's the thing. The Gluttony team is owned by the Heisho. She cannot make it into the Envy team because the Envy team is owned by the Middle. She's not going to make it into the Lust team because the Lust team is... The thing is, Encore Forced's passive is just so much better. Anyway, 3 to 5 speed, so she'd become 5 to 7, which is actually pretty impressive. Butcher Ribs. On use, gain clash power for every type of negative effect on the target. Final power +1 for every 4 bleed on the target. I'm sorry, it's late at night. Inflict a bleed count, inflict defense level down, and gain defense level up. Farsia Hungers. Clash power for every type of negative effect. Final power +1 for every bleed. Inflict 2 bleed count, inflict a bind, and a corpus ingredient. This is her unbound state. Final power for every bleed on the target. Inflict a bleed count, inflict defense level down, and gain defense level. And final power for her skill 2. Inflict 2 bleed count, gain a haste, nothing new. Double the speed clash power damage buff gained from Somatic Friction Inspired Melody. That's the nonsense that Hong Lu is giving away. Ring Lu, I guess. On hit, if the attack skill inflicted a negative effect, heal SP. Okay. Raise her speed from 3 to 5 to 3 to 6, so that's giving her 5 to 8 in Unbound. That's actually pretty zippy. Repressed Flesh. This is the name of one of the attacks you get from the puppets in Library of Ruina. It's actually a pretty good attack. Iron Maiden exclusive skill. Yeah, final power for every bleed on the target, 10 plus corpus ingredient. I remember last week when I was reviewing this nonsense, I was very disappointed by how little there is to boost coin power. Deal 30% damage for every excess attack weight beyond the actual number of targets. Final power +1 for every 4 bleed. At enough count, consume up to 20 and gain the following effects. Final power bonus damage. At certain potencies, gain attack weight. Convert all skills to unbreakables. Inflict bleed, inflict bind, gain haste, inflict damage down, gain slash damage up. Inflict a bleed count at the very end of all this. Then raise the base power for the skill 1, raise the base power for the skill 2. Raise the base power for the skill 1 enhanced, raise the base power for the skill 2 enhanced. Support passive. 1 Lust 2 Envy. When hit, allies that equip defense skills on their slot inflict 4 bleed on the attacker. 2 times per turn. If the attacker already has bleed, inflict bleed count instead. It doesn't specify who though, so I guess they knew that Enforced's backup passive was pretty important.
집중해서 들어주세요. 파시아의 고동을 약동하는 이 생명의 소리를.
And now the Upties story. Oh boy, a forced voice at this time of the night. A forced posed contemplative query. What among all conceivable artwork would constitute the true apogee of art, the one absolute piece that an artist could possibly create? And that singular inquiry is where the beginning of this forced's record is situated. How do you find the intercostal musculature, fascia? Fragments of flesh caged between dull plates of dull iron quivered intermittently. The heart melodized an arithmetic cadence, while the vasculature, arborizing in no particular order, convulsed and twitched liberally. The thing gave no response, or perhaps could not respond would be a more precise statement. As no apparatus capable of producing vocal timbers were attached to the construct. And yet, to Faust, the thing's corporal oscillation seemed to come across as some sort of possible linguistic discourse. She was, after all, nodding her head to it, all the while focusing her gaze on the massive twitching muscles as one would a person to whom one is engaged in a particularly lovely conversation. I see, but I no longer have much flesh left to give. It's a pity to have to make this request to you, but please temper your cravings for a short while. The cerebrum? I'm afraid that necessitates further study. For now, only segments that are non-essential to Faust's continued existence have been excised. There's no certainty to be had yet. Faust delivered her words in a remarkably amicable tone as her hands worked without rest. With a razor-sharp scalpel in one hand and forceps in the other, she methodically pushed the blade through the incision on her abdomen. An uninformed observer would think she were carrying out a surgical procedure on herself. If one were permitted a closer look, however, one would soon learn that the prodding and slicing of the flesh more closely resembled the measured enthusiasm of a gourmet slicing her choice cut of meat. In haute cuisine affair, the colourless passion on her face made such an interpretation even more convincing. In return, the cut will be made along the vertical grain this time. You'll find it more efficient to absorb and assimilate. With this, fascia, all constituent elements of Faust's corpus, excluding this phallic region, have been transferred to you. Faust's observation does justice to the present state of being. The only remaining human tissue within that body is now a brain with a partially degraded function. At this point, the pronoun I might as well represent the great sword designated as fascia in all but name. Perhaps this very same impression is one that Faust wished to inspire through fascia, who will one day be exhibited on a pedestal to her audience to appraise. As expected, Faust's ability to construct an impromptu dialogue has measurably declined following the excision of brain slices last time. Sorry, fascia, your absorption of the corpus ought to be accompanied by a more stimulating conversation. The wait won't be long, though. A critique symposium is scheduled for today with the other apprentices. It did require some degree of effort to convince those lay people who have no interest in the study of art, but... young Faust. How puzzling. Faust does not recall extending an invitation to Don Quixote. Verily, that is, I did chance to overhear thee conversing with another apprentice. And I, too, have a goodly stories for thee, so few be that lend an ear to my words, and I have many a tale to recount about fixes. Forsooth, thirst for the law of fixes is not sated easily, no matter how much one learneth. Are the others on their way? Oh, I shan't say I'm certain. They grant me not much time to converse with them, so young Ishmael and Sinclair did seem to command in a duel of words, and I see. This force directed a brief apologetic look toward Fascia, who was pulsating with a stronger beat next to her. The apprentice designated as Don Quixote had, for several months, been persistently visiting Faust and Fascia uninvited, telling streams of wild tales that ended neither here nor there. At first, Force found an intellectual satisfaction in discovering that a single thematic axis of fixes could generate thousands of narrative variations, and that there was plenty of new information to be gathered from Don Quixote's tales. However, it wasn't long before Force learned that the pieces of information overlapped in the multiple variations of those stories. Force decided redundancy was best left unentertained. Approximately an hour remains until the Maestro's lecture. You may tell your story, but please see that it ends before. Huzzah! I shall not disappoint. Force had no choice but to listen in silence. Let's be fair, even though this probably isn't supposed to be first person, we've already kind of established that it's Carmen talking about all this, so it's still a decent voice to pick. That is, until the time finally arrived for the practical session of her art. There, Fascia, your coat is taken off. Absorb as much as you can. Please do as the entity designated as Force did. In her hunger, she absorbed every piece of knowledge she came across. So must you with your pieces of corpus. They moved through rows and rows of specimens, slicing, tearing, and absorbing. Fascia's heart pulsed louder and hotter, while Force, in tandem with Fascia's hunger, synchronized her movements. It was a vivacious waltz. Oh, you have grown so much in such a short span of time. A restaging is in order. Yes, Fascia, your performance is most excellent. Force would have elected the same course of action. Force never stopped talking to Fascia, even as an entire specimen was being sectioned and grafted onto Fascia. Tremors of Fascia's musculature almost seemed to function as a coherent language now. It's almost human. Alas, such a designation is still too premature. You see, Fascia, many in the city believe that the brain alone suffices for the human classification, regardless of any other modifications applied to the corpus. You now possess the entirety of Force's blood and flesh, but in the absence of a brain, you are not perceived as human, even though 90% of physical composition that constitutes Force, a human, resides in you. Force has only the brain, and Fascia only lacks the brain. Force is confident that this artwork will, from its thematic inquiry alone, yield far more than a passing grade from the Maestro, for both evaluation of the assignment and appreciation of the piece, of course. But Force can't help but remain curious. If all of the components constituting Force's corpus are present in a given object, only arranged in a structure and form different from Force's original corpus, would such a thing still be called Force? Your name may be Fascia at the moment, Fascia, but in the near future, once the day of your exhibition finally comes, your pedestal will bear another name, artwork Force with a question mark. A Force at some point in the future will apply her final touch to the masterpiece. But if even the brain, the final remnant of Force corpus, is transferred to Fascia, will it remain Fascia, or will it become Forced? Would it become human in the eyes of the city? Or, finding herself unable to arrive at a clear answer, the smile on Force's face grows even more pronounced, along with the conviction that this mystery, this query, is precisely the unique brand of aesthetics she has been pursuing all along. An artwork through which the self becomes the self by means of total self-consumption. The one true magnum opus that an artist could create only once in her lifetime, alone in its uniqueness. It's like those old cartoon shorts. I have the act of a lifetime! Drinks gasoline and then eats a match and explodes. Unfortunately, I can only do it once. And then he goes back to the afterlife. Even today, in this very moment, Force stands in anticipation that is yet to come, quietly mouthing the word to her future self, if not some observer before the pedestal would whisper in wonder, Forced? With a question mark. Yeah, the problem is that she feels it. She is not good enough to take over Encore Forced. I just don't see it. And it's unfortunate that I have to say that. I actually have the Ardor Blossom Ego equipped because I was doing this to beat the story dungeon. Sorry about that. Anyhow, LCB he's saying, but we can also look at his House of Spiders Ring Nursefather over here. So, starting from the top, passives. Gain corpus ingredient equal to the number of allies on the field. I think that actually does count them, so you're going to start off with at least 2 from scratch. Skill end. If the skill deals HP or shield damage, gain an ingredient. Gain corpus ingredient every time we consume 10 cumulative count. If the above effect brings this ingredient to 2 or higher, gain tibia. Base power +1. Bleed or unique bleed deal extra damage. Gain base power and base power. Inflict a bleed. Right, that's something I wasn't considering about House of Spiders Fascia. She is gaining some stacks here. Base power +1. I feel like more bleed potency. Base power +1. But I feel like coin power might become more important in the late game. Or at least deep dungeon dives anyhow. Where was I? And we don't have anything below that, it looks like. Yep. Alright, skill 1. Anatomize. Inflict bleed, defense level down, defense level up. My, how we love the flesh and blood unlocked at tier 2, so we won't look at that now. Gather ingredient, blood-bathed objet. At 10 plus ingredients, consume 5 ingredient to gain clash power and an unbreakable coin at the end. Inflict a bleed count, inflict a bind and a haste. Gain ingredient count. If the target has 5 negative effects, use installation art number 3, improvise ribcage, against the target. Once per turn. And ooh, that actually becomes a pierce attack. Unclashable does not trigger... Oh. It doesn't trigger defense skills, so you can't use it to eat up extra charges of clashable guards. Darn. But on the upside, it means that if you get to the point where you hit with a third hit, then they aren't going to use a reusable evade. Ahab. Consume 4 more ingredients. There is no turn limit here, so we are actually going to end up going attack positive. Deal 5 SP damage, heal 5 SP, inflict Corpus Theater. Base stack 3. When this unit gains bleed from enemy attack skills, randomly gain one of the following effects and lose a stack. Once per skill. Gain bleed, bind, defense power down. And that it says base stack 3 probably means that it's going to make them 3 stacks. Defense. Curate the exhibition. Gain assist defense next turn and inflict a bind once per turn. Please, vandalism is prohibited. Assist defense exclusive. Deal extra damage for every negative effect on the target. If the target has 6 plus bleed, gain a coin power. At 10 plus corpus ingredient, consume some corpus ingredients to gain the following effects. Clash power, and convert the final coin to unbreakable. Nothing Wait a minute. Increase by 10 after this unit defeats an enemy, regardless of level. Increases by 10 but when defeating an enemy who is higher level or equal. Okay, so that's something unique for Ringmaster Hong Lu. Ooh. Do I want to muscle this guy into my slash team? Because on one hand, I kind of don't. Because I'd be losing my Kurokumo Hong Lu, and Kurokumo does still have synergy. But on the flip side, You could get him up to level 60. I might experiment. Anyway, Uptie. Speed range 4 to 5, 4 to 6. My, how we love the flesh and blood. Do not trigger defense skills. Cannot be reused. This doesn't actually hit anyone, so that it applies 4 offense level on the target. And I remember that this is used on Forced. Anatomize. Gain final power for every bleed. Inflict more bleed. Final power for every 4 bleed on the target to a maximum of 2. Inflict more bleed count. Inflict a bleed. Extra stuff per thing. So yeah, it's improved. Oh, it doesn't have bleed yet. But after this Uptie, it will trigger the wound clearer. That's nice. 4 owned. Before House of Spiders, Ring Apprentice Forced uses her skill 3. Except ego skills? I think that's a bit clunky. Use My How We Love the Flesh and Blood on Forced once per turn. On hit, if the attack skill inflicts a negative effect, heal 4 SP at attack end. 3 times per turn. Raises speed range from 4 to 6 to 4 to 7. Unlock Tibia's Melody. Anatomization of the unatomized by the anatomer. What a mouthful. Deal extra damage for all the excess attack weight consumed. Final power for every bleed on the main target. At 10 plus corpus ingredient, consume up to 20 to gain the following. Final power plus 2, extra ingredient count to extra damage for all the ingredients consumed. At 3 plus or 5 plus, gain attack weight. We start out with no attack weight. Convert all coins to unbreakable. Inflict a bleed, inflict a bind, inflict a haste. Hang on. Uptie 3 adds a new passive, and it's not a support passive, but anyway, damage down, gain damage up, inflict a bit of extra damage, inflict a bleed count. Closing time, installation art number 1. Your flesh and bones as the gallery seats. Deal extra damage for all the excess attack weight beyond number of actual targets. And it starts off with 3 attack weight. When attacking just one target, deal 100% extra damage. At 10 plus corpus ingredient, consume up to 20 ingredient count to gain the following. Final damage. Extra damage for all the ingredients consumed. Extra attack weight for the potency for all identities in the Ring faction. Heal 10 SP, apply somatic fission inspired melody. That's the thing that Forced was getting boosted from. Min and max speed up. And I think this actually does include himself. It doesn't say anything about it wearing off too. Cool. Unbreakable bleed. Unbreakable bind and taste. Unbreakable damage down and slash. Unbreakable bleed count. Unbreakable burn and corpus theater. Ooh, it's the fun thing that comes from his skill 2. Upgrade base power for the skill 1. Base power for the skill 2. Base power for the skill 2 follow-up. Support passive unlocked. Please do stop running and be seated. But it doesn't say anything about that massive...
키치부터 아방가르드까지 무엇 하나 빠짐이 없도록 제가 직접 큐레이팅을 드리죠.
It didn't say anything about that extra passive though. Such vibrant freshness, even after a day outside the storage. In a mere month you've absorbed the finer points of this technique like a sponge, down to the microscopic subtleties only relentless obsession can hope to capture. A chalky white gallery showered an even drier, sterile light. Laid upon the sharp-angled machine palm was a beating bright red heart, Just as the child observed, there was even a vibrant sheen to it, though it was only recently removed from storage, or a body. Faust intends to commit your teaching techniques in their entirety to Faust, down to the smallest marginalia. Because Faust is a genius. You may succeed, yet indeed, many students have I cultivated under my tutelage, but I have not seen anyone master the arts as quickly as Faust does. Not since that child. I have no more heart sculpting lessons to give. Starting tomorrow, we will shift our focus to the details. Ah, do you mean to let Farsia partake in your artwork again? Yes, it would be best if Farsia experienced the work in most holistic manner, through her digestive organs. Bravo! Utter perfection, both the journey and the destination. The child closed his eyes, his lips drawing a satisfied smile. His bliss could be attributed not only to his reunion with this long-lost delight of guiding a protege, but also to the fact that the protege was a rare kind of voracious genius who readily devoured his teachings. When do you expect Farsia to be completed? Farsia. Uncertain as of yet, the intensity of dedication seems to directly correlate with anxiety about shortcomings. Maestro, how much time did you dedicate to perfecting Tibia? Many years. A decade of which was solely dedicated to sculpting and polishing its form. The child gazed down upon Tibia, his eyes gleaming not with pride, not with love, but something more. When Tibia earned its status as a magnum opus, it was for its plasticity. It retains the nigh infinite possibilities of the human corpus, an automated judgment to instinctively transform, lengthen, and harden itself in response to environmental stimuli. My colleagues at the Ring were most captivated by Tibia, but alas, Tibia was a once-in-a-lifetime project, as its creation consumed the entirety of my physical corpus. If plasticity is my primary concern, perhaps the corpus of another worthy of aesthetic appreciation could have been used as the medium for your next project? The corpora of others are unfamiliar media when compared to one's own. After all, none knows the body more intimately than its owner, potentialities and limitations alike. Mine I perceive in exact precision. The act of artistic creation using a media with which one so innately unfamiliar only serves to fill the void with pointless mediocrities, don't you think? Truly, Maestro. So, never dismiss the hours dedicated to art as squandered, Faust. Your art has subsumed even parts of your cerebral matter. Time will only perfect it. Your choice of subject matter, so experimental and philosophical, I might add, interests me in particular. I'm curious to see what inspiration the project might offer once it is completed. The problem is that both of them are soft-spoken and somewhat high-pitched for me, so it's actually kind of hard for me to distinguish the two. Thank you. The child's protege gave him a light nod of appreciation, but soon lifted her eyes to inquire, her voice curious. If I may be so bold, Maestro, could you tell me the reason why you have not removed your other eye and your hair? I seek perspective to explore different avenues in this existential meditation. Ah, well asked. To begin, this isn't my hair. It's sort of a prosthesis, painstakingly woven with organic fibers. Perhaps one day I shall teach you this technique as well. Indeed, its intricacies pale abreast blood vessels or tendons, but the imitation of hair can be an illuminating learning process to learn how color composition creates detail, and how lines come together to form a sense of depth. As for this eye, yes, I would be remiss to abandon such an indispensable window upon which inspirations are reflected. However, I must be considerate of the gracious host of audience who, from just behind my eye, appreciate my life and artistic endeavors within. The elders. Audience, do you mean to say that your eye is a prosthesis connected elsewhere? Not quite, though it is an inheritance. It is also a precious jade that I alone must safeguard. There was once a time when I thought it was but a tool to quell their boredom, something to let them see the world outside. But once I studied it myself, once I explored its intricacies, I must say I was positively flabbergasted. It even helped me understand there was something that Gramps and Granny simply could not let go. Yes, what a fascinating creation it is. And that is why I did not integrate it into Tibia, so that it may fulfill the worth inherent in its existence. I see. Has my answer been helpful enough? Oh, yes, it was but a question born out of contemplation over the concept of connection. The protege's curiosity was yet to be fully sated, but the child simply nodded in acceptance. Acceptance that his protege had already matured, paving her path that diverged from his own. She merely needed a question to confirm the gaze of others, no more. Very well then. Let us call it a day, said the child, noticing a flickering light by his wrist. Do we have guests? Yes, we do. The corridor has seen quite a lot of uninvited guests as of late. Uninvited guests? Visitors with intentions other than to appreciate my gallery. Some of them discourteous enough to go to vandalize my installations or, in more severely troublesome cases, attack me. Should you will me so, I could assist with trouble of such nature. That won't be necessary. All outcomes are in unpredictable flux until they are experienced firsthand, no? If these visitors are the civil kind, it would only be right that I return their kindness by playing the curator to this gallery of mine. With the recent addition, it would be quite a timely visit for them. I must admit, I am also motivated by curiosity to find out whether my newfound intent during my tenure here has been properly communicated. The child gave a faint smile, then began descending the spiral staircase alongside the protege. I accidentally banged the table, sorry. It was indeed no false alarm. A squad of people, all dressed in bright blue gear, were wandering through the gallery of art installations. Though it was quite a spacious hall, they were threading their way between the sculptures with extra caution. Has this location ever been recorded before? By the looks of it, we've just walked into one of the ring's galleries. No, I think we might have stepped wrong somewhere along the way. This might be the first time this location's been observed. And from the tense anxiety tinting their voices as they talked to each other, it was clear they had stumbled in here by accident. Hey, who knows? Might be one of those places where no one survived to deliver the report. Greetings! There's been a recent influx of guests in the same uniform as yours. Could it be that you are their colleagues? If only you had made a group reservation ahead of your visit, I would have prepared a more structured curation for our visitors. I don't suppose you are terribly interested in that. Great. I suppose he's the one who caused all those no-returnee expeditions. Prepare to engage! None. It seems today's guests are quite impatient. The strangers in blue all raised their weapons and braced for a fight, but the child returned their hostility with a graceful, amicable bow. Allow me to introduce myself first. I am Honglu, maestro and the proud owner of this gallery. A private gallery, I might add. We rarely receive guests who lack even the frailest connection to this establishment, let alone an invitation or a reservation. Still, I will always view the expanding accessibility of art to the public as a positive development, regardless of how it occurs. Art? What, is that what they call these bone chunks? Let's not provoke him. I think we just walked into a corporate gallery of the ring. I don't want to find out how he'll react to negative reviews of his work. No, this is most wonderful. That is a complete layperson that could possess the knowledge of the art movement I spearhead. So, we're good. It is true that many without the predilection toward gore find it difficult to appreciate the aesthetic philosophy of corporist art. As much as I desire to invite many to delve headfirst into this artistic discipline, I mourn the reality that there are many restricting hurdles to prevent that understanding. That is why I've sought out a new avenue of contemplation the day I became a maestro. Knowing or not, every corner, every side, every surface of your lives is touched by movements of art. If I could weave and coalesce those slightest brushes into a singular, all-encompassing masterpiece, something that moves the heart of all men, yes, then I could be said to have created the true magnum opus of the century. And that was the child's honest, genuine belief. As others placed the blame upon him for the movement's struggles, for the absence of its anchor, he slowly faded away from the mainstream and became a has-been so far removed from his prime. But even after he arrived at the House of Spiders, he never once stopped creating his art for that singular purpose. Art that could be understood and appreciated by every resident of the city, even those without the slightest connection to the discipline. A thread that makes kindred souls out of all humanity. It is actually because they came up with the ring after they were done, after Library of Ruina, and it's kind of a shame because I feel like the actual floor of art would have really gotten some mileage out of access to the ring, but I suppose ring is a bit too high, and by the time you get up there you're already pretty crammed with different stories. And the end of that lone red thread was looped at the tip of his fingers, the culmination of his endeavor. This thread is twined threefold from the tendons of the right heel cord, taken from a certain material that flickered my first light of inspiration. The subject matter, deconstruction and reinvention. Let's follow the thread, shall we? Please do join me as each artwork of my oeuvre tells its tale and slowly familiarize yourself with it. 854 signals fat. Wait, is this? They're all organic tissue? The readings are coming from... They're above it. No, under it. Wait, no, behind the curtain. Inside the pillar. They're everywhere. And now, we together witness the moment of convergence. Excitement pulsing through his machine body, the child gently tugs on the thread. And the two lost souls, unwitting and unwilling participants to this performance, watch helplessly as red and pale something emerges from every surface with a discomforting din. The child's research, his studies honed and perfected over many years in the House of Spiders. This is disgusting. Who in the right mind would call this art? Oh, please don't give up so quickly. May have culminated in yet another failure. His studies perfected may have culminated in yet another failure. Now, the show begins. But it may be that failures and the like no longer matter to the child, for he is but a madman, a maestro who has long since forgotten his once desperate desire to be understood, to be acknowledged. The lack of acknowledgement from the audience only signified the dullness of their sensibilities after all. He had faith in that one day someone will arrive with due recognition, and then smack him on the head with a hammer. Title: Corpus Theatre. Do enjoy. So hang on, there's something I probably should check while I'm thinking of it. As soon as the loading screen is done. House of Spiders ring corpus slashed out maestro. The Oracle's proxy. Huh. So we don't have any other... Hang on, if we organize by recency bias. Yeah, we don't actually have any other Nursefathers to look at, but Rien isn't kicked out. What's his face is? Actually, no, we gotta wrap up here. So until next time, guys, take care. I'll see you all around.
이제 더는 대관원의 어르신이 한때 우매한 지식으로 제 머릿속을 파헤치려 한 적이 있었답니다. 뇌를 깎아 양감을 조절하려 시도했죠. 결과는 실패였어요. 오직 손의 감각만으로 뇌를 건드리는 게 얼마나 어려운 건지 알았다면 이렇게 모자로 신체를 가리지 않아도 되었을 테죠.